The room was dark. Four shadows moved around a bed. A woman lay there, arms pinned, legs held down. The air smelled of beer and sweat and something darker, something predatory. A man's voice cut through the silence. Low, confident, cruel. Scream louder. Nobody's coming. Nobody cares. You're alone. Fabric tore. The sound was loud in the quiet room, then silence. 3 seconds of absolute stillness. And then the screaming started. But it wasn't her screaming. It was them. 30 seconds later, four men lay on the floor, broken, bleeding, gasping for air that wouldn't come fast enough. One woman stood in the center of the room. Her shirt was torn at the collar. Her knuckles were bleeding. Her breathing was steady. She wasn't the victim. She never had been. This is the story of the night Kira Blackwell taught four predators a lesson they would never forget. But to understand that night, we need to go back, 6 months back, to the beginning of everything. The Pacific wind cut across Naval Base Coronado like a blade. Sharp, cold, relentless. Even under the late afternoon sun, it carried the bite of something unforgiving. Salt spray from the bay mixed with diesel exhaust and gun oil. That particular smell every sailor knows. The smell of readiness, of violence held in check, of warriors waiting for the call. Kira Blackwell stood at the edge of the obstacle course, arms crossed, boots planted shoulder-width apart. Her eyes tracked 20 recruits struggling through the rope climb. Her face revealed nothing. At 28 years old, she carried herself like carved granite. No wasted movement, no unnecessary words, just presence. The kind that made recruits straighten their spines without knowing why. The kind that made seasoned operators take a second look and wonder what she'd survived to become this hard. One of the recruits slipped, caught himself, kept climbing. Kira said nothing. She didn't need to. The kid knew she was watching. That was enough. Behind her, footsteps approached on gravel, heavy, measured, the walk of a man who had earned every step through decades of service. Blackwell, she turned. Master Chief Nathan Holbrook stood 6 feet back, hands clasped behind him. 58 years old, gray at the temples, lines around his eyes that came from squinting into desert sun and watching too many good men die in places most Americans couldn't find on a map. Desert Storm veteran. Navy Cross on his dress blues. 30 years of service to a country that asked everything and promised nothing in return. He was the kind of man who didn't raise his voice because he never needed to. When Holbrook spoke, people listened, not because of his rank, because of his presence. Master Chief, Kira said. He nodded toward the recruits. They getting better? Some? Just some? Most will wash out by week 3. The course does it for me. I don't need to push them out. The obstacle course separates the committed from the curious. Holbrook smiled faintly, the smile of a man who had seen this cycle repeat itself for 30 years. You washed anyone out personally yet? No need. The standards do my job for me. He studied her for a moment, the way senior enlisted studied junior personnel when they were deciding whether to say something that mattered or let it slide. His eyes held something she couldn't quite read. Concern, maybe, or recognition. You eating? He asked. Yes, Master Chief. Sleeping enough? Kira paused. That's not really an answer, is it? 4 hours, same as always. Holbrook sighed, not disapproval, understanding. He'd been there himself years ago, when sleep felt like weakness and vigilance felt like survival. When closing your eyes meant letting your guard down, and letting your guard down meant becoming vulnerable. Walk with me, he said. They moved away from the course, down toward the waterline where the noise fell away and the Pacific stretched out forever. Pelicans skimmed the surface, hunting for fish in the shallow water. Somewhere a ship's horn sounded, low and mournful, the kind of sound that reminded you how small you were against the vastness of the ocean. You know what today is? Holbrook asked. Kira glanced at him. Thursday. 10 years ago today, he said quietly. His voice dropped, carrying weight that had nothing to do with volume. My daughter died in a training accident, parachute malfunction. She was 22. Kira stopped walking. She'd heard the story before. Bits and pieces, whispered in break rooms and mentioned in passing, but never from him directly. Never with this rawness in his voice. Her name was Claire, Holbrook continued. He looked out at the water, but his eyes were seeing something else. Something 10 years gone. Wanted to be a pilot, smart as hell, stubborn as hell. Could argue you into the ground and make you thank her for it afterward. He paused. Reminded me of someone. He looked at Kira when he said it. She didn't respond. Didn't know how. What do you say to a man who lost his daughter? What words could possibly matter? Point is, Holbrook said, I see her sometimes. In you. In the way you carry yourself. In the way you don't let anyone close. In the way you've built walls so high that nobody can climb them. He turned toward the water. That's not living, Blackwell. That's just surviving. Surviving works, Kira said. Her voice was flat, matter of fact. The voice of someone who had learned this lesson the hard way. For a while, then it doesn't. Then the walls become a prison instead of a fortress. And you realize you've kept everyone out, including the people who might have helped. They stood in silence. Waves rolled in. Wind tugged at their uniforms. The sun was beginning its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. There's talk, Holbrook said finally, about you. Kira's jaw tightened. There's always talk. This is different. Staff Sergeant Vance and his crew. They're saying things that don't sit right with me. Let them talk. Words don't hurt me. I'm not talking about locker room garbage. Holbrook's voice dropped even lower. Serious now. The voice of a man who had seen enough combat to recognize danger before it struck. I'm talking about something darker. Something that feels wrong. The way they watch you. The way they go quiet when you walk by. There's planning happening, Blackwell. I can feel it. Kira looked at him. Really looked. You think they're planning something? I think men with wounded pride do stupid things. And Vance's pride is very wounded. You've rejected him publicly. Multiple times. Men like him don't forget that. They don't forgive it. They plot. They scheme. They wait for the right moment. I can handle Vance. I know you can. Holbrook reached into his pocket, pulled out a folding knife. Old. Weathered. The handle worn smooth from years of use. The blade had been sharpened so many times it had lost a quarter of its original width. This was with me in Desert Storm, he said, holding it out. Carried it through every firefight, through sandstorms and ambushes and the kind of hell that doesn't have a name. Never used it, but knowing it was there made a difference. Knowing I had one more option if everything else failed. Kira hesitated, then took it. The weight was good, balanced. The handle fit her palm like it had been made for her. Just in case, Holbrook said. Trust your instincts, Blackwell. They've kept you alive this long. Don't ignore them now. She slipped the knife into her pocket. Thank you, Master Chief. He nodded, started to walk back toward the base, then stopped, turned back. One more thing. If something happens this weekend, if things go sideways, you call me. Doesn't matter what time. Doesn't matter where you are. You call me. You understand? I understand. But she wouldn't call. They both knew it. Kira Blackwell didn't call for help. Hadn't in 8 years. Not since the night that changed everything. Not since she learned that the only person you could truly count on was yourself. Not since she discovered that trust was a weapon other people used against you. 6 months earlier. The desert training facility sprawled across 12,000 acres of nothing. Sand. Rock. Heat that made the air shimmer like water. This was where they broke the weak ones. Where overconfidence met reality and reality always won. Where boys who thought they were men discovered what true hardship meant. Kira had been stationed there for 3 weeks. Just another rotation. Another set of recruits to mold into something resembling functional operators. Another batch of eager faces that would be half as eager by the end of the first week. She ran the combatives course, the close quarters battle drills, the parts where technique mattered more than muscle, where a smaller person could defeat a larger opponent if they knew what they were doing, where violence became a science instead of chaos. That's where Staff Sergeant Derek Vance first noticed her. He came to observe one morning, leaning against the doorway of the training hall while Kira demonstrated a disarm technique on a volunteer. His arms were crossed. His expression was casual, but his eyes tracked her every movement with an intensity that had nothing to do with professional interest. The volunteer was bigger, heavier, 200 pounds of muscle and confidence. He grabbed her from behind, arms locked around her chest, thinking size would be enough. Thinking that brute strength trumped technique. 3 seconds later, he was on the mat gasping, her knee between his shoulder blades, his arm hyperextended at an angle that made everyone watching wince. One more inch of pressure, and the joint would dislocate. Control, Kira said, not breathing hard, not even slightly winded. Not strength, control. You control the angle, you control the fight, you control the pain, you control the outcome. Understand? She released him, helped him up, reset the drill. The volunteer rubbed his shoulder, respect and embarrassment mixing on his face. He'd learned something. They all had. Vance watched the whole thing with the expression of a man seeing something he wanted, something he hadn't realized he wanted until that moment. His eyes narrowed, his posture shifted. The casual observer became something else entirely. After the session, he approached. 32 years old, movie star jaw, the kind of smile that had opened a lot of doors and closed a lot of doubts throughout his career. 3 deployment ribbons on his chest, expert marksman qualification, the natural charisma that made junior enlisted want to follow him and senior enlisted want to promote him. Derek Vance was used to getting what he wanted, had been his whole life. Women, promotions, respect. Everything came easy to a man with his looks and his charm. Impressive, he said, falling into step beside her as she headed toward the armory. His tone was friendly, casual, the tone of a colleague making small talk. Kira glanced at him, assessed him in a fraction of a second, cataloged the details, the confidence in his stride, the assumption in his smile, the way he positioned himself slightly too close. Thank you, Staff Sergeant. Derek, he said, we don't need to be formal. We're the same rank practically. Colleagues, maybe even friends if you give it a chance. I prefer formal. His smile didn't falter, but something shifted behind his eyes. A flicker of surprise, brief, gone almost immediately, replaced by something else. Challenge maybe, or determination. Fair enough. You're new here, right? Blackwell? That's correct. Where'd you train? That disarm technique. That's not standard curriculum. That's not what they teach in basic combatives. Personal study. They reached the armory door. She stopped, turned to face him, making it clear the conversation was ending. Her body language was unambiguous. This is where we part ways. Well, Vance said undeterred, if you ever want to grab coffee sometime, compare notes on technique. I know a good spot off base. Quiet, private, great coffee. I appreciate the offer, Kira said. But no. Not rude. Not apologetic. Just no. Direct. Unambiguous. Final. Vance's smile held, but something shifted behind his eyes. A flicker of something darker. Anger, maybe, or wounded pride. The look of a man who wasn't used to hearing that word. No problem, he said. His voice was still friendly, but the friendliness had developed an edge. Maybe another time. I don't think so. She went inside, closed the door, didn't look back. Vance stood there for a moment, alone in the corridor, smile fading, jaw tightening, hands clenching at his sides. He wasn't used to that, to flat rejection, to women who didn't even soften the blow with excuses or explanations, to hearing the word no without any cushioning, just no. He walked back toward the barracks, hands in his pockets, mind already working on the problem. Because that's what Kira Blackwell had become in that moment. A problem that needed solving, a challenge that needed conquering, a woman who needed to be taught her place. Over the next 4 months, Vance tried again, and again, and again. Different approaches, different angles, different strategies designed to break through her defenses. He brought her coffee during morning PT, showed up with 2 cups, smiled, offered one. She thanked him, left it untouched on the bench, walked away without looking back. He offered technical advice on her training curriculum, suggestions wrapped in compliments, subtle ways of inserting himself into her professional life. She listened politely, nodded at appropriate intervals, didn't implement any of it, didn't acknowledge his contributions. He invited her to informal squad gatherings, movie nights, beach volleyball games, barbecues at Carter's place off base. She declined every time. Always polite, always professional, always with that same flat tone that offered no opening for negotiation. Always no. His crew noticed. Garrett Dunn, 26, compact build, boxer's hands. The kind of guy who settled arguments with fists and felt good about it afterward. He'd grown up fighting, in foster homes, on the streets, in the Navy. Violence was his native language, and he was fluent. Cole Whitmore, 24. Lean and quick. Always had his phone out. Always recording something. Always looking for content. He fancied himself a documentarian of sorts, capturing moments, building archives, some of which were legal, some of which were not. Owen Beckett, 22. Fresh-faced. Eager to prove himself to the older men. Eager to belong to something bigger than himself. He joined the Navy to escape a nothing town and a nothing future. Now he followed Vance around like a puppy, desperate for approval. They watched Vance's repeated attempts and subsequent failures with a mixture of sympathy and amusement. "She's ice cold, man," Garrett said one evening in the rec room. They were gathered around a table in the corner, empty beer bottles forming a small forest between them. "Doesn't even blink when you talk to her, like you're not even there." "She blinks," Vance said. His voice was flat, hard. "She's just not interested in you." Cole laughed. "That's a first, for any of us." Vance didn't laugh, stared at his beer bottle instead, picking at the label with his thumbnail, peeling it away in thin strips, methodical, controlled, the action of a man containing something that wanted to explode. "Maybe she's got someone," Owen offered, trying to be helpful, trying to diffuse the tension building in the room. "Like back home or something. A boyfriend, a fiancé, someone." "She doesn't." "How do you know?" "I asked around." Vance looked up. His eyes had changed. Something harder in them now. Something that hadn't been there a month ago. Something that had been building with each rejection, each dismissal, each time she walked away without a second glance. "No boyfriend, no girlfriend, no anything. She just keeps to herself. Lives alone, eats alone, trains alone. Like the rest of us don't exist." "Some people are like that," Owen said. His voice was uncertain, uncomfortable with where this conversation was heading. "Nobody's like that," Garrett said. "Not really. Everyone needs something. Everyone wants something. Everyone has a button you can push." "Maybe she doesn't need anything from us," Cole said, scrolling through his phone, not really paying attention, not seeing the storm building across the table. Vance set his beer down harder than necessary. "She thinks she's better than everyone here. That's the problem. Walks around like we're beneath her. Like our attention is an insult. Like we should be grateful she even acknowledges our existence." The others went quiet. The tone had shifted. What started as friendly ribbing had developed an edge, a blade beneath the banter, something dangerous stirring under the surface. "Come on, man," Owen said. "She's just focused. Doesn't mean she thinks she's better. Maybe she's just professional. Maybe she's just..." "Doesn't it?" Vance leaned back. His eyes moved from face to face, making sure he had their attention. "You seen the way she looks at people? Like we're specimens under glass? Like she's studying us and finding us lacking? Like we're not even worth the effort of a real conversation?" Garrett nodded slowly. Yeah, I've seen that. She made Peterson look like an idiot during that breach drill last week. Called him out in front of the entire squad. In front of everyone," Cole added, looking up from his phone now, interested. "Peterson made himself look like an idiot," Owen said. His voice was weaker now, less certain. "He didn't clear the corner. Basic mistake. She didn't have to embarrass him about it. Could have pulled him aside. Could have been diplomatic. She was doing her job." "Her job," Vance said quietly, "is to train personnel. Not to make them feel worthless for not being as perfect as she is. Not to humiliate them for every mistake. Not to act like she's God's gift to the Navy." Silence settled over the table. The television in the corner played SportsCenter at low volume. Highlights from a basketball game nobody was watching. Somewhere down the hall, someone laughed. The sound distant and disconnected from the tension building in this room. "So what?" Garrett said finally. His voice had dropped. Conspiratorial. What do you want to do about it? Vance didn't answer right away. Turned his beer bottle in slow circles on the table. Condensation leaving wet rings on the wood. Round and round. Hypnotic. The movement of a man thinking dark thoughts. Nothing, he said. Yet. But that word. Yet. It hung in the air like smoke. Like a promise waiting to be fulfilled. Like a threat that hadn't quite been made but was understood by everyone present. 2 weeks later, Kira led a night navigation exercise. 12 recruits. Full gear. 20 kilometers through rough terrain, with nothing but compass and starlight to guide them. She moved through the darkness like she'd been born in it. No flashlight, no hesitation, no uncertainty. Her feet found solid ground without conscious thought. Her eyes read the terrain through darkness that would have blinded most people. The recruits struggled to keep pace, stumbling over rocks, cursing under their breath, wondering how she made it look so easy, how she glided through obstacles that tripped them up every few meters. Vance and his crew had volunteered as safety observers, positioned at checkpoints along the route. Standard procedure. Nothing unusual, just experienced personnel making sure the training went smoothly. Except at checkpoint 3, Garrett radioed ahead to checkpoint 4, where Vance was waiting. She's coming up on you, alone, about 50 meters out. Copy, Vance said. He waited in the darkness, listening to footsteps approach. Light, quick, confident. The footsteps of someone who owned the night instead of fearing it. Then she was there, emerging from the shadows like a ghost. One moment empty darkness. The next moment Kira Blackwell, checking her compass, marking her map, professional and focused. Checkpoint 4, Vance said, shining his red lens flashlight briefly to mark position. Kira stopped, checked her compass, marked her map, didn't look at him, didn't acknowledge him beyond the professional necessity of the checkpoint. Her eyes stayed on her equipment. Her attention stayed on her mission. You're making good time, Vance said. The recruits aren't. They'll catch up. They will, eventually. You could slow down, make it easier for them, build some camaraderie. Easier doesn't make them better. Vance stepped closer, not threatening, just closing distance, testing boundaries, seeing how she'd react to his presence in her space. You know, he said, his voice dropping to something more intimate. You don't have to be alone all the time. Some of us would like to get to know you, the real you, the person behind the professional mask. Kira looked up from her map. Her eyes in the dim light were flat, emotionless, like looking into still water that reflected nothing and revealed nothing. This is the real me, she said, and I prefer alone. She moved past him, disappeared into the darkness, gone as quickly as she'd appeared. Vance stood there, red flashlight still in hand, jaw tight, something cold settling in his chest, something that had been building for months finally crystallizing into solid form. Garrett's voice crackled over the radio. How'd it go? Vance didn't respond immediately, stared into the darkness where she'd vanished, where she'd dismissed him without a second thought. Again. Fine, he said finally. Everything's fine. But it wasn't. Something had calcified in him that night. Rejection had fermented into resentment. Resentment into something harder and uglier. The kind of thing that once born only grew. The kind of thing that fed on itself until it became all-consuming. The smoke pit behind the maintenance hangar was unofficial territory, not on any map, not part of any duty station, just a place where people went when they wanted to talk without being overheard, when they wanted to say things that couldn't be said anywhere else. 4 men stood in the weak yellow light from a single bulb. Cigarette smoke drifted up into the night. Somewhere far off, a generator hummed its mechanical lullaby. The only other sound was the distant crash of waves against the shore. Vance leaned against the railing, boot hooked on the lower bar. The other 3 stood in a loose semicircle, waiting for him to speak. When Vance had something to say, you listened. That was the unspoken rule, the hierarchy that existed beneath the official ranks. She shut down Anderson yesterday, Garrett said, during drills, made him restart the entire sequence because his muzzle discipline was sloppy. Called him out in front of everyone. It was sloppy, Owen said. His voice was quiet, uncertain. That's not the point. The point is she does it in front of everyone. No discretion, no mercy, just public humiliation, like she enjoys it. She's an instructor, Owen said. That's literally her job. That's what instructors do. Garrett turned on him. Whose side are you on? There are no sides. I'm just saying. You're just saying she's right to humiliate people. I'm saying she's doing her job. What she's supposed to do. Her job, Vance said quietly, and everyone went silent, is to make operators. Not to make herself feel superior. Not to crush people for entertainment. Not to act like she's better than everyone else. They all looked at him. Every guy who's tried to approach her, Vance continued. His voice was calm, measured. The calm of a man who had made a decision. Every single one. She shut them down, politely, professionally, like we're not even worth the effort of a real explanation. Like we're insects she's brushing off her sleeve. Maybe she's just not interested, Owen said. His voice had grown smaller. He could feel the temperature in the room dropping. In anyone? Ever? That's not normal. That's not human. Nobody goes through life rejecting everyone. Nobody builds walls that high unless they're hiding something. Cole lit another cigarette. What are you getting at, Derek? Vance was quiet for a long moment, working through something in his head, testing the weight of words before he spoke them, making sure they landed exactly how he intended. People who act untouchable, he said finally, sometimes need reminding that they're not. The statement landed like a stone in still water, ripples spreading outward, implications expanding. What does that mean? Owen asked. His voice was barely above a whisper. Vance looked at him. Means maybe someone needs to level the playing field. Bring her down to earth. Show her she's human like the rest of us. Show her she's not as untouchable as she thinks. How? Another pause. Longer this time. The cigarette smoke curled up into the darkness like a ghost. Party this Saturday. Carter's place. Off base. Casual. Everyone's invited. Including her? Cole asked. Especially her. Owen shifted his weight. Uncomfortable. What exactly are you planning? Nothing, Vance said. His smile didn't reach his eyes. Just a conversation. A real one. Where she can't hide behind professionalism and protocols. He flicked his cigarette into the gravel. The ember died with a small hiss. Where the walls come down and she has to be honest about who she really is. Garrett smiled slowly. How you going to make that happen? Vance didn't answer directly, just looked at each of them in turn, making sure they understood without having to say it explicitly, making sure they were committed. You trust me? He asked. Yeah, Garrett said immediately. Cole nodded. Always. Owen hesitated. His mouth opened. Closed. The words he should have said died in his throat. The warning he should have issued stayed locked behind his teeth. Then he nodded too. Yeah. Good, then let me handle the details. You just show up Saturday night and make sure word gets to Blackwell about the party. Casual like it's no big deal. And if she doesn't come, Cole asked, she'll come. She's too curious not to. She'll want to see what we're about when we're off duty. Want to confirm whatever assumptions she's already made about us. People like her can't resist the opportunity to feel superior. He pushed off the railing, ground out his cigarette with his boot heel. Saturday night, he said again. Everything changes. They dispersed into the darkness, each man walking away with different thoughts. Garrett felt excitement, the prospect of action after weeks of frustration. Finally, something was going to happen. Cole felt curiosity, wondering what Vance had planned, what footage he might get, what content he might capture. Owen felt dread, a cold weight in his stomach that wouldn't go away. The knowledge that something terrible was coming, and he was too weak to stop it. But none of them said no. None of them walked away. Because once you're part of a crew, once you pledge loyalty to the men beside you, saying no becomes the hardest word in any language. Friday afternoon, the medical supply building sat at the edge of the base. Unremarkable, largely ignored. A single-story structure with faded paint and a door that squeaked when it opened. The kind of building people walked past without a second glance. Bryn Ashford had been assigned administrative duty there for the week. Inventory, requisitions, data entry, mind-numbing work. But it paid, and it kept her clearance active. And it was quiet. away from the chaos of the main buildings. She was filing paperwork when she noticed someone at one of the computer terminals, Staff Sergeant Vance, logged into the pharmaceutical database. Not unusual. Personnel with appropriate clearance access the database regularly for legitimate reasons. Training scenarios, field medicine protocols, documentation for after-action reports. Vance had the clearance. He had the authorization. But something about the way he was looking at the screen made Bryn pause. Furtive, quick glances toward the door, tension in his shoulders, the posture of someone doing something they shouldn't, the body language of guilt. She moved closer, pretending to organize nearby files, acting casual, just doing her job. On his screen, search results for sedatives, Rohypnol, dosage information, onset times, duration of effects, potential side effects, how to mask the taste, how to administer without detection. Bryn's stomach tightened, a cold fist clenching in her gut. Vance minimized the window, stood abruptly, saw her watching. His expression shifted. For just a moment, something dark flickered in his eyes. Then the charm reasserted itself. The smile returned. The mask slipped back into place. "Hey," he said, friendly, casual, the tone of someone with nothing to hide. "Just doing some research for a training scenario. Combat medicine stuff. You know how it is." "Oh," Bryn said. Her voice came out higher than she intended. "Okay. You heading to the party tomorrow?" "Yeah, probably." "Good. Should be fun. Bring friends." He walked past her, paused at the door, turned back. "See you there, Ashford." After he left, Bryn stood in the quiet room, staring at the computer terminal. The screen had gone dark. Sleep mode. Whatever he'd been looking at was gone. Something felt wrong, very wrong. But what could she do? Instructors research medical topics all the time. Sedatives were part of combat medicine curriculum. Field medics needed to know how these substances worked, how to identify them, how to treat someone who'd been exposed. Vance had legitimate reasons to access that information. She was probably overreacting, making connections that didn't exist, seeing shadows where there was only light, her imagination running away with her. Bryn went back to her filing, but the unease stayed with her, a small voice in the back of her mind that she chose to ignore. A whisper that said something terrible was about to happen, a warning that she refused to hear. Because the alternative, believing that someone she served with could be planning something dark, was too frightening to consider, too destabilizing to accept, too dangerous to voice without proof. So she ignored it. And that choice, that moment of dismissing her instincts, would haunt her later, would wake her in the middle of the night with cold sweat and racing heart, would become the defining regret of her young life. Saturday, 6 p.m., Kira stood in front of her mirror, studying her reflection, looking for weaknesses, finding none. Jeans, black t-shirt, boots, the same thing she wore off duty every time. Functional, unremarkable. The uniform of someone who didn't want attention, who didn't need to impress, who was prepared for anything. She wasn't going to the party to impress anyone, wasn't going to socialize or bond or let her guard down, wasn't going to pretend to be something she wasn't. She was going because walking away felt like surrender, and Kira Blackwell didn't surrender. The knife Holbrook gave her was in her pocket. Her phone was charged. She told no one where she was going, hadn't asked for backup or support, hadn't mentioned the party to anyone. This wasn't a mission, just reconnaissance. See what they were about, assess the threat level, confirm or deny her suspicions, and leave. Simple. At 7:30, she left her quarters, walked across the base to the parking lot, got into her truck. The engine started with a familiar rumble. The radio stayed off. She didn't need distractions. The drive to Carter's house took 12 minutes. Residential area, quiet streets, houses with small yards and chain-link fences. Normal suburbia hiding whatever secrets it held. The kind of neighborhood where people waved to their neighbors and never knew what happened behind closed doors. The blue house was easy to spot. Cars lined both sides of the street. Music thumped from inside. Bass rattling windows. Laughter spilling out into the night. She parked 3 blocks away, approached on foot, taking her time, letting her eyes adjust to the street lights and shadows. Tactical assessment, automatic. The front door. 2 exit points visible from outside. Window positions. Crowd density. Who was where? Through the windows she could see people. 30, maybe 40 personnel. Drinking, talking, laughing. Normal, harmless. But Kira had learned long ago that normal was a mask people wore. Underneath, everyone was capable of anything. She reached the house at 8:45. Inside, the noise was immediate. Music. Conversations overlapping. Someone shouting about a football game. The smell of beer and grilled meat. The familiar chaos of off-duty military personnel letting off steam. Kira stepped in, closed the door behind her, heads turned. Conversations paused briefly, then resumed. The ripple effect of someone unexpected arriving. She moved through the crowd, not stopping, not engaging, just present, visible, making it clear she wasn't hiding, wasn't intimidated, wasn't playing their game. In the kitchen, Vance was leaning against the counter. When he saw her, his expression shifted. Surprise, then satisfaction, then something else. Something predatory that made Kira's instincts spike. Something that sent alarm bells ringing in the back of her mind. "Blackwell," he said, pushing off the counter. "Didn't think you'd show." "Here for an hour," Kira said. "Then I'm leaving." "Fair enough. Want a drink?" He gestured to the counter where red plastic cups were lined up in neat rows. "Got beer, some mixed stuff. Nothing fancy." Kira looked at the cups. All identical. No way to know which was which. No way to track chain of custody. No way to know what had been added to any of them. "I'll get my own," she said, moving toward the cooler. But Vance was already holding one out. Already poured. "Save you the trouble." Their eyes met. His expression was friendly, open, trustworthy. The face of someone who meant well, who was just trying to be a good host, who had nothing but benign intentions. Every alarm in Kira's head was screaming, but refusing would show suspicion, would reveal that she didn't trust him, didn't feel safe here, would give him exactly what he wanted, confirmation that she thought herself above them, that she saw danger where others saw friendship. So she took the cup. "Thanks," and she said. Vance smiled. "No problem. Enjoy the party." He walked away, disappeared into the crowd, left her standing there with the cup in her hand and the weight of her instincts telling her something was very, very wrong. Kira looked down at the cup. Clear liquid. Smelled like vodka and juice. Innocent. Harmless. Exactly what you'd expect at a party. She raised it to her lips. Didn't drink. Just let the liquid touch her mouth, wet her lips, then lowered it again. Not obvious. Just careful. Just maintaining the illusion of participation while taking no actual risk. Around her, the party continued. People laughed. Music played. Everything normal. But in Kira Blackwell's world, nothing was ever normal. And tonight, she knew with absolute certainty something was about to go very, very wrong. 20 minutes into the party, Kira's vision blurred. Not much, just a fraction. Like looking through glass smeared with fingerprints. Like the world had shifted slightly out of focus. She blinked, refocused, tried to clear it. The blur remained, spreading at the edges of her peripheral vision, creeping inward like fog. She set the cup down on a table near the porch door, had barely touched it to her lips, but liquid absorbed through membranes, through skin contact, through the wet edge of plastic against mouth. Even minimal exposure was enough. Enough. Her internal assessment ran automatically, the training kicking in when conscious thought began to falter. Heart rate elevated slightly, pupils likely dilated, though she couldn't see them. Depth perception compromised, reaction time slowing, fine motor control degrading, balance beginning to waver, rohypnol, or something similar, fast-acting, potent. She had maybe 15 to 20 minutes before full effect, maybe less. The drug was moving through her system faster than expected. Whatever they'd used, it was strong. Across the room, Vance was watching. Not obviously, just periodic glances, checking her position, her state, her vulnerability, tracking her like a predator, tracking wounded prey. Garrett stood near the back door, Cole by the stairs, Owen near the kitchen entrance, positioned, waiting. Chess pieces on a board she'd walked onto willingly. Kira walked toward the porch, pushed through the door into cool night air. The sudden temperature change helped. Adrenaline spiked, burning through some of the drug's fog, sharpening her senses for precious seconds, buying her time she desperately needed. She needed to leave. Now. Get to her truck. Drive back to base. Report this. Let the system handle it. Let someone else fight this battle. But her legs felt heavy, not paralyzed, just weighted, like moving through water, like her muscles had forgotten how to work properly, like the signals from her brain were getting lost somewhere along the way. She made it 3 steps off the porch before Vance appeared beside her. Fast, too fast, like he'd been waiting for exactly this moment, like he'd been tracking her movements, like he knew exactly when she'd try to run. "You okay?" he asked, concern in his voice. Perfect practice concern that would fool anyone watching. The voice of a helpful colleague, a concerned friend. "Fine," Kira said. Her own voice sounded distant, disconnected from her body, like it belonged to someone else. "You look pale. Maybe you should sit down. I'm leaving. Let me help you to your car. At least make sure you get there safe." His hand was on her elbow, gentle, supportive. The grip you'd use on someone unsteady, someone who needed assistance, someone who couldn't take care of themselves. Kira pulled away. "I'm fine." But she stumbled, just a half step, just a momentary loss of balance. Vance saw it. His expression shifted. Concern became certainty. The mask slipped for just a second. She saw what was underneath, the satisfaction, the anticipation, the triumph. "Come on," he said, voice firmer now, more insistent. "Let's get you inside. You can lie down for a minute. Sleep it off." "No." He moved in front of her, blocking her path to the street, his body between her and freedom. "You're not okay. You need to sit down before you fall down, before you hurt yourself." Behind him, Garrett and Cole emerged from the house. Casual, just checking on a friend. Nothing suspicious to anyone watching from inside. "She all right?" Garrett asked. "Just had too much," Vance said. "Going to help her upstairs, let her sleep it off." "I didn't drink anything," Kira said. The words came out slurred, just slightly, just enough to betray her. Vance smiled, sympathetic, understanding, the perfect performance. "Come on, let's go." He took her arm again. This time when she tried to pull away, his grip tightened. Not painful, just firm. Just enough to guide her where he wanted, to make resistance futile without causing a scene, to maintain the appearance of helpful concern. Back toward the house. Kira's tactical mind was still working, still processing through the chemical haze, still looking for options. 3 men. She could take 3 men in normal circumstances, had done it in training, had done it in combat, had done it 8 years ago when she'd sworn this would never happen again. But these weren't normal circumstances. Her body was betraying her, coordination failing, strength ebbing, the drug working exactly as designed. She needed time, needed the drug to cycle through, to metabolize, to lose its grip. 15 minutes, maybe 20, not long in the grand scheme of things, but an eternity when predators were circling. So she stopped resisting. Let them think the drug had won. Let them guide her back inside, through the kitchen where the party continued oblivious, toward the stairs that led to the 2nd floor, to whatever they had planned. Better to conserve energy, better to let them think they'd won, better to spring the trap from inside than to waste precious strength fighting the inevitable. "Easy," Vance said, "1 step at a time." The stairs felt like climbing a mountain. Each step required conscious thought. Lift foot, place foot, transfer weight, repeat. The simple mechanics of movement becoming complex, requiring focus that should have been automatic. Every step a small victory against the chemicals in her blood. Halfway up, Owen appeared at her other side, took her left arm while Vance held her right. 2 men supporting her weight, making sure she didn't fall, making sure she made it to wherever they were taking her. "I'm sorry," Owen whispered. So quiet she almost missed it. Kira turned her head, looked at him. Young face, guilty eyes, scared. The face of someone who knew what was about to happen and hated himself for participating, but lacked the courage to stop it. The face of weakness, of moral failure, of a man who would carry this moment with him forever. Weak point. She filed that information away. Might be useful later. They reached the second floor, hallway with 4 doors. The one at the end stood open. Bedroom, bare mattress, single lamp, window with closed blinds, prepared, staged, waiting. This hadn't been improvised. This had been planned. Every detail considered, every contingency prepared for. Days or weeks of preparation leading to this moment. They walked her to the threshold. Vance's hand was on her back now, between her shoulder blades, guiding her forward with gentle but insistent pressure. "Just lie down," he said. "Rest. You'll feel better in a bit." The room smelled like cheap detergent and old carpet. The mattress had a stain on one corner, dark and old. No sheets, no pillows, nothing soft or comfortable, not meant for sleeping. Kira stepped inside. Vance followed, then Garrett, then Cole, phone already in his hand. Owen hesitated in the doorway, not wanting to cross that threshold, not wanting to be part of what came next, but not strong enough to walk away either, frozen between conscience and cowardice. "Close it," Vance said. Owen closed the door. The click of the latch was loud in the sudden quiet. Then the lock turned. That sound was even louder, more final, more damning. 4 men, 1 locked room, 1 woman who could barely stand. The math was simple, the outcome predetermined. Except they didn't know what Kira knew, didn't understand what 8 years of preparation had built, didn't realize that the drugged, stumbling woman in front of them was still the most dangerous thing in this room. They just hadn't figured it out yet. Vance moved to the window, checked the blinds, closed tight. No one outside could see in. Complete privacy, complete control, or so he thought. Cole pulled out his phone, opened the camera, pointed it at Kira. The red recording light glowed in the dim room. "Insurance," he said, "so everyone knows what really happened here. So there's no," he said, "she said later." Garrett stood near the dresser, arms crossed, watching, waiting for his turn, the patient predator who knew the prey was already caught. Owen stayed by the door, hands in pockets, eyes down, unable to watch, but unable to leave, trapped by loyalty he should never have given. Kira cataloged it all. Positions, distances, angles of attack, the lamp on the nightstand, ceramic base, maybe 5 pounds, potential weapon, the dresser drawers, potential weapons inside, the door, locked, but hinges on the inside, could be broken if necessary, the window, escape route if necessary, all of it processed and filed while her body swayed slightly, while her eyes struggled to focus, while they thought they'd already won. "Sit down," Vance said. Kira didn't move. "I said sit down." "No." Vance's smile faded, frustration replacing the friendly mask, the pretense dropping away to reveal what had been underneath all along. The anger, the entitlement, the wounded pride that had festered into something monstrous. "You don't get to say no anymore," he said. "Not here. Not now. That privilege ended when you walked through the door downstairs." He moved forward, put his hand on her shoulder, pushed. Kira let herself fall backward onto the mattress, let her body go limp, let them see what they expected to see, what they needed to see to feel safe, to feel in control, helpless, vulnerable, defeated. The mattress was old, springs digging into her back. Her vision swam. The ceiling fan above was motionless, blades thick with dust, a fixture that hadn't moved in years. Vance leaned over her, close enough that she could smell his cologne, his breath, the beer he'd been drinking, close enough to be a threat, close enough to be a target. "All those times you said no to me," he said quietly. His voice dripped with satisfaction, with vindication, with the certainty that justice was finally being served. "Like I wasn't good enough. Like none of us were good enough. Like you were some kind of ice queen who didn't need anyone." His hand was on her collarbone now, fingers tracing down, testing, claiming, marking territory. "Who's good enough now?" Kira didn't answer, didn't move, just watched him through half-closed eyes. letting him think she was barely conscious, barely aware of what was happening. Garrett moved closer. "Let me help." He grabbed her left wrist, pinned it to the mattress beside her head. His grip was professional, practiced, not the grip of someone doing this for the first time. He'd done this before. That realization cut through the drug fog like a blade. This wasn't their first time. This was routine for them, a pattern repeated, a system they'd perfected. How many others had been in this position? How many other women had faced the same horror? How many others? How many other women who said no and paid this price? How many victims had there been before her? Cole moved to her right side, grabbed her other wrist, phone still in one hand, recording everything, documenting the assault for posterity or blackmail or whatever sick purpose he had in mind. "Get her legs," Vance said to Owen. Owen didn't move, just stood there frozen, hands trembling. "Owen, now!" The younger man stepped forward slowly, grabbed Kira's left ankle. His hands were shaking, sweating. He didn't look at her face, couldn't meet her eyes. Garrett released her wrist and moved to hold her right ankle. 4 points of contact, pinned, spread out on the mattress like a specimen on a table, like something to be studied, to be used, to be discarded. Vance straightened up, looked down at her, savoring the moment, the power, the control, the reversal of every rejection, every humiliation, every time she'd made him feel small. "See," he said, "this is who you really are. Just another person who can be held down, can be controlled, can be taught a lesson." He reached for her shirt collar. Kira's heart rate spiked, not fear, fury, cold, controlled fury that burned away the last of the drug's effect, like sunrise burning away fog, like fire burning through ice. Her breathing changed, deeper, steadier, oxygenating muscles, preparing for what came next. Vance grabbed the collar of her shirt, started to pull. Fabric tore. The sound was loud in the quiet room, satisfying to him, the first step in whatever he had planned. Cole's phone camera focused in closer, getting the shot, the evidence, the trophy, the thing he could use later to control her, or to relive this moment, or to show others what happened when someone rejected them. "Yeah," Cole said. "That's it. This is good. Keep going." Garrett's grip on her ankle tightened. Owen's hands on her ankle started to sweat. She could feel his pulse through his fingers, racing, terrified. The reluctant participant who'd gone too far to back out now. Weak point confirmed. Vance leaned down again, his face inches from hers, close enough to see the satisfaction in his eyes, the belief that he'd won, that justice in his twisted worldview was being served. "Scream louder," he whispered. "Nobody's coming. Nobody cares. You're alone. Finally completely alone." Those words, those exact words. 8 years ago. Different room, different men. Same words, same situation. Same moment of realization that help wasn't coming and survival depended entirely on herself. Something inside Kira broke. Not her spirit, not her will. The last chain holding back 8 years of rage, 8 years of preparation, 8 years of waiting for this exact moment. Her eyes opened fully, clear, focused. The drug was still in her system, but adrenaline was stronger. Training was stronger. The absolute refusal to be a victim again was stronger than any chemical compound ever created. Vance saw the change, saw something shift behind her eyes, saw the predator realize it had trapped the wrong prey. His expression flickered, uncertainty replacing certainty. Too late. Kira's right leg, the one Garrett held, exploded upward. Not a wild kick, not desperation, a precise chamber, knee to chest, then extension, full power, full commitment. Her boot heel drove into Owen's groin with every ounce of force she could generate. The impact was devastating. Physics and anatomy combining in the worst possible way for Owen. His scream was high and broken, the sound of something fundamental breaking, the sound of a man who would never forget this moment. His hands released her ankle immediately. He collapsed sideways, hit the floor, curled into a ball. Out of the fight, neutralized, one down. Garrett's head turned toward Owen. Distraction, fatal mistake. The oldest trick in combat: never take your eyes off your opponent. Kira twisted her hips, used the mattress springs for leverage, pivoted her body with core strength that hadn't failed her yet. Her left leg came free. She coiled it, building tension, then snapped it out. Heel strike to Garrett's solar plexus, center mass, maximum damage, textbook execution. Air exploded from his lungs. His grip on her ankle loosened. He stumbled backward, gasping, unable to breathe, unable to function. 2 down. Cole was still holding her right wrist, but the phone was occupying his other hand. He couldn't control her effectively with one hand, couldn't maintain grip and hold the camera steady, couldn't be a documentarian and a participant at the same time. Kira sat up fast, using core strength and momentum. Headbutt, not a wild swing. Targeted, forehead to bridge of nose, bone against cartilage. No contest. Cartilage crunched, blood sprayed. Cole released her wrist, stumbled backward, hands going to his face, phone clattered to the floor, screen cracking on impact. 3 down. Vance was backing up, eyes wide, processing what just happened, how it happened, how the helpless woman on the bed had become a threat in less than 5 seconds. Kira was on her feet now, swaying slightly, still fighting the drug, but upright, mobile, dangerous. The hunter instead of the hunted. Vance reached for something on his belt. Knife, small folding blade. Last resort of a man who'd lost control of the situation. He flicked it open with a practiced motion. "Stay back," he said, voice shaking now. Fear replacing confidence. Predator becoming prey. Kira didn't stay back. She moved forward, not rushing, not losing control, closing distance with deliberate precision. Vance slashed, wild arc, defensive, desperate, the attack of someone who'd never really had to fight for their life before. Kira swayed left. The blade passed inches from her face. She continued forward, caught his wrist on the backswing, applied pressure, wrist lock, textbook execution, control the weapon, control the fight. The knife fell, clattered on the floor, harmless now. She drove her palm into his chin, snapping his head back. His teeth clacked together, blood on his lips where he bit his tongue, the copper taste of defeat. He stumbled backward into the dresser, tried to push off, come back at her, still thinking he could win this, still not understanding how badly he'd miscalculated. Kira grabbed the lamp from the nightstand, ceramic base, heavy, solid. She swung it in a short arc, efficient, economic, no wasted motion, connected with the side of Vance's head. The lamp shattered, ceramic fragments scattering across the floor. Vance dropped. Not unconscious, dazed, blood running from his temple, mixing with sweat and fear. 4 down, 30 seconds, maybe less. The room was quiet now, except for breathing. Theirs, ragged, desperate, damaged. Hers, controlled, steady, victorious. 4 men down, 4 threats neutralized. 4 predators who'd learned that some prey fought back. Some prey had teeth. Kira stood in the center of the room, shirt torn, knuckles bleeding, hair wild. The drug was still in her system. She could feel it. But it didn't matter anymore. She'd won. Not because she was stronger, not because she was lucky, because she'd trained for this. Because 8 years ago, she'd sworn it would never happen again. Because when violence was the only answer, she was better at violence than they could ever imagine. Behind her, Garrett was trying to stand, still wheezing, ribs probably cracked from her kick, moving slow, vulnerable. Kira turned, stepped over Owen, who was still curled on the floor, still whimpering, moved toward Garrett with purpose. He saw her coming, tried to raise his hands, defend himself, but his breathing was wrong, his balance was off. He was operating at 20% capacity, too slow. She grabbed the front of his shirt, slammed his head backward into the doorframe. Once, the sound of skull meeting wood. Twice, harder, 3rd time. His eyes rolled up. He slid down the wall, unconscious, a rag doll in tactical clothing. Cole was on his knees, blood pouring from his broken nose, trying to crawl toward the phone, trying to recover the evidence, trying to salvage something from this disaster. Kira walked over, stomped on the phone. Screen splintered under her boot. She stomped again. Plastic cracked. Again. Components scattered across the floor like confetti. No evidence. No recording. No trophy. Nothing to use against her later. Cole looked up at her, terror in his eyes. The kind of fear that comes from realizing you've made a fundamental miscalculation about the world and your place in it. Please, he said. Please don't. Kira grabbed him by the collar, lifted him partially off the ground, drove her knee into his ribs, felt one crack, then another, the sound of consequences arriving. He went down, stayed down, curled up like Owen, whimpering, broken. Vance was trying to sit up, blood on his face, eyes unfocused, concussion probably, maybe worse. Kira walked over, knelt beside him, made sure he could see her clearly, made sure he understood. Say it again, she said quietly. He looked at her, confused, in shock, brain trying to process what had just happened. Say what you said before, about nobody coming. Vance's mouth moved. No sound came out, just breath and blood. Kira grabbed his jaw, forced him to look at her, to really see her, to understand the mistake he'd made. Say it. Nobody's coming, he whispered. That's right. Kira leaned closer. Nobody came. Nobody saved me. I saved myself. Remember that. Every day in prison. Remember that you chose this. You chose to be predators. And predators sometimes meet something higher on the food chain. She released him, stood, walked to the door. The handle was bent from when Garrett hit the frame. Splintered wood, bent metal. She unlocked it, pulled it open. Cool air from the hallway, voices from downstairs, music still playing, the party continuing. Oblivious to what had happened one floor above, Kira stepped into the hallway, paused, looked back at the room, at the four men in various states of consciousness, at the scene of their defeat. Then she started down the stairs. One step at a time, hand on the railing for balance, shirt torn at the collar, blood on her knuckles, boots still on. Halfway down, someone looked up, a corporal, young, drunk. His expression changed as he processed what he was seeing. Shock, confusion, the disconnect between expectation and reality. You okay? He asked. Kira stopped, looked at him, let him see her face, let him see the truth in her eyes. They're not, she said, continued down the stairs. More people noticing now. Conversation stopping, heads turning, eyes widening. The ripple effect spreading through the party as people realized something had happened. She walked through the kitchen, through the living room, toward the front door, moving with purpose. Not running, not hiding, just leaving. Someone grabbed her arm. Hey, what happened? Do you need... Kira pulled free without breaking stride, kept walking. No explanations necessary, no justifications required. Outside, the night air was cold, sobering. She stood on the porch for a moment, breathing deeply, letting the adrenaline cycle down, letting her body begin the process of recovery. Her truck was 3 blocks away. Long walk, but she'd made longer walks in worse condition. She stepped off the porch, a voice from her left. Blackwell. Kira turned. Master Chief Nathan Holbrook stood beside his truck, parked across the street. He'd been there the whole time, watching, waiting, recording, ready to intervene if necessary, but trusting her to handle it herself. He walked toward her, stopped a few feet away, looked at her torn shirt, her bleeding knuckles, her steady gaze. You handled it? He asked. Yes, Master Chief. He nodded, pulled out his phone, showed her the screen, video footage, shot through the bedroom window. Not clear, but clear enough. 4 men surrounding her. The fight. All of it documented. I've got the rest, he said. Got here, saw them take you upstairs, started recording. I was 10 seconds from coming through that door when you handled it yourself. Why didn't you stop them before? Because you needed to do it yourself, needed to know you could, needed to prove to yourself that you're not the same person you were 8 years ago. He put the phone away. And now you do. Now you know for certain that when it matters, you're enough. You've always been enough. Behind them, voices from inside the house. Someone had found the room. Found the men. Panic spreading as people realized the party was over and something serious had happened. Go, Holbrook said. I've got this. Kira hesitated, then nodded, started walking toward her truck. Blackwell. She stopped, looked back. I'm proud of you, he said. Claire would have been too. Kira didn't trust herself to respond, just nodded, kept walking, one foot in front of the other. 3 blocks of quiet suburban streets, houses with their lights on, normal lives continuing behind those walls. 3 blocks felt like 3 miles. Every step an effort, the adrenaline fading now, exhaustion replacing it, the drugs still in her system making her limbs heavy, her thoughts slow. But she made it, got to her truck. Sat in the driver's seat for a long moment, just breathing, just existing in the space between crisis and recovery. Her hands were shaking, not fear, not shock, just the aftermath, the body processing trauma, the nervous system recalibrating after emergency protocols. She started the engine, drove slowly, carefully, back toward base, hands at 10 and 2, eyes on the road, following every traffic law. No reason to attract attention now. Behind her, Carter's house erupted into chaos. Sirens in the distance. Someone had called for medics. Someone had called the police. The machinery of justice beginning to turn. But Kira didn't look back. She drove through quiet streets, through the gate onto base, showed her ID, drove to her barracks, parked in her assigned spot. Inside her quarters, she locked the door, stripped off her torn shirt, looked at herself in the mirror. Bruises forming on her wrists where they'd grabbed her, scrapes on her knuckles, blood under her fingernails, evidence of what had happened, proof that this was real. She showered, hot water, as hot as she could stand, washing away blood and sweat and the feel of their hands on her, washing away the evidence, but not the memory. Memory stayed. Memory always stayed. After she dressed in clean clothes, sat on her bed, looked at the clock. 11:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, it would be Sunday. New day, new beginning. Or maybe just continuation of the same fight. Different battle. Same war. Her phone buzzed. Text from Holbrook, NCIS en route. Base lockdown. You're clear. Get some sleep. She set the phone aside, lay back on her bed, stared at the ceiling. Sleep wouldn't come. Not tonight. Probably not tomorrow night either. But that was okay. She'd survived. Not just survived, she'd won. 4 men thought they could break her, thought they could take what she wouldn't give, thought that drugs and numbers and locked doors were enough. They were wrong, and now they knew it. Now everyone would know it. Kira Blackwell wasn't untouchable because she thought herself better. She was untouchable because she'd made herself a weapon. Sharp, precise, unforgiving. And weapons didn't negotiate, didn't compromise, didn't surrender. They cut, and tonight she'd cut deep. Morning came cold and gray. Fog rolled in from the Pacific, thick enough to blur the edges of buildings, to turn the base into something ghostly and uncertain. Kira stood outside the NCIS field office at 05:45, 15 minutes early. Her uniform was crisp, boots polished to mirror finish, hair pulled back regulation tight. No visible evidence of last night except a small bruise on her left wrist, mostly hidden by her sleeve. The door opened. A woman in civilian clothes, early 40s, short dark hair, eyes that missed nothing and forgot less. The kind of investigator who had seen everything and was surprised by nothing. Petty Officer Blackwell. Yes, ma'am. Special Agent Diana Merrill, come in. The office was temporary, set up in what used to be a storage building. Folding tables, laptop computers, file boxes stacked against walls. The organized chaos of an active investigation in its early hours. 2 other agents were present, both men, both watching Kira with professional assessment, trying to reconcile the composed woman in front of them with what they'd seen in the video footage. Sit, Merrill said, gesturing to a chair. Kira sat, hands folded in her lap, posture perfect, face neutral, the mask she'd perfected over 8 years of service. Meryl pulled up a chair across from her. Close, intentionally invading personal space. Testing, seeing if Kira would flinch or retreat. She didn't. Long night, Meryl said. Yes, ma'am. Want to tell me about it? I'd prefer to wait for my union representative. Meryl smiled faintly. You're not under investigation, petty officer. You're the victim here. Though from what I understand, the 4 men in the hospital might dispute that characterization. They drugged me, Kira said. Took me to a locked room. Attempted sexual assault. I defended myself. That's not disputable. That's documented. With considerable effectiveness. I was trained well. Meryl leaned back, pulled out a tablet, tapped the screen with practiced efficiency, turned it toward Kira. Video footage. Grainy. Shot through a window, but clear enough. The bedroom. 4 men surrounding her on the bed. Then the fight. 30 seconds of controlled violence that looked choreographed in its precision. Master Chief Holbrook provided this, Meryl said. Along with his statement, he was outside the house, saw them take you upstairs, started recording. He says he was prepared to intervene, but you handled the situation before intervention became necessary. Kira watched the video without expression, seeing herself from outside. The way her body moved, efficient, brutal, effective, the product of thousands of hours of training. The hospital reports are interesting, Meryl continued. Owen Beckett, ruptured testicle, will require surgery. Garrett Dunn, concussion, 3 cracked ribs. Cole Whitmore, broken nose, 2 fractured ribs. Possible orbital fracture. Derek Vance, skull fracture, 7 stitches. Possible traumatic brain injury. Pending MRI results. She paused. Let the details hang in the air. Let Kira process the damage she'd inflicted. You did that in 30 seconds to 4 men, while drugged, while impaired, while your fine motor control was compromised. Yes, ma'am? How? Kira met her eyes. 8 years of training and 8 years of knowing exactly what I'd do if anyone tried again. Again? Silence. Kira didn't elaborate. Some stories stayed private until they became necessary evidence. Meryl tapped her tablet. Your record shows an incident during Btch/S training 8 years ago. An instructor was discharged after you filed a complaint. Details are sealed. Yes, ma'am. Was that incident similar to last night? It didn't get as far as last night. I stopped it earlier. By breaking his jaw. By defending myself. By making it clear that assault would not be tolerated. By ensuring he faced consequences. Meryl nodded slowly. Set the tablet aside. Leaned forward again. Here's where we are, she said. Toxicology confirms rohypnol in your system. Not a large dose, but enough to cause significant impairment. We found the source, a vial hidden in Derek Vance's locker. His fingerprints all over it. His procurement records show he accessed the medical database Friday afternoon. Researched sedatives, dosages, effects. So it was premeditated. Extensively. We also found a second camera, hidden GoPro with cloud backup. Vance had positioned it in the bedroom beforehand. The footage shows everything, including them spiking your drink, discussing their plan, carrying you upstairs, the assault attempt. Everything. Meryl pulled out a folder, opened it. Photos, screenshots from the GoPro footage, damning evidence of premeditation and intent. This is clear evidence of conspiracy to commit sexual assault, Meryl said. Drugging, false imprisonment, attempted rape. All of them are facing serious charges, very serious charges. Good, but there's a complication. Kira waited. There was always a complication. Owen Beckett is cooperating. Full confession. He claims he tried to stop it. Whispered an apology to you on the stairs. Says he was pressured by Vance and the others. That he didn't want to participate but felt he had no choice. He still participated, Kira said. He grabbed my ankle. Held me down. Whatever his internal conflict, his actions were clear. I know. And he'll face charges. But lighter ones. In exchange for testimony. Meryl paused. His testimony is crucial. Because it reveals something bigger. Something that goes beyond this one night. She pulled out another file. Thicker. Older. The kind of file that suggested a pattern. 3 years ago, Derek Vance was stationed at Naval Base Ventura County. A female lieutenant filed a harassment complaint against him. The complaint was investigated by the base commander at the time, Captain William Hartley. Merrill opened the file. A photograph. A woman in uniform. Blonde. Early 30s. Confident smile that suggested she hadn't yet learned what the system could do to people who spoke up. The investigation concluded there was insufficient evidence, Merrill continued. The lieutenant was transferred. The complaint was buried. Case closed. Everyone moved on. She looked up at Kira. Except it wasn't closed. And they didn't move on. What happened? Lieutenant Leah Stratford left the Navy 2 years ago. We contacted her yesterday. She's agreed to testify. Testify to what? That Derek Vance, along with Garrett Dunn, drugged and assaulted her at an off-base party in 2019. That she reported it immediately. That Captain Hartley dismissed her complaint. Suggested she was confused about what happened. Implied that pursuing charges would damage her career more than theirs. That he gave her a choice, transfer and move on, or destroy her career fighting a battle she couldn't win. Merrill pulled out more documents. Hartley was base commander at Ventura County from 2018 to 2020, then transferred to Norfolk. Vance and Dunn followed standard rotation. Ended up here at Coronado 6 months before you arrived, bringing their pattern with them. Kira's hands tightened in her lap. He buried it. He protected them. And because of that protection, they did it again. To you, and possibly to others we haven't found yet. The room was quiet. One of the male agents shifted his weight. The fluorescent lights hummed their steady drone. Captain Hartley is still serving, Merrill said. Currently stationed in Norfolk. When this comes out, there will be an investigation into his conduct, into how many other complaints he buried, into whether this pattern of protection extends beyond him, into whether the system itself enabled this. You're saying this is bigger than 4 men. I'm saying this is systemic, and your case is going to blow it wide open. You're not just a victim who fought back. You're evidence of institutional failure. You're proof that the system protects predators when good people stay silent. Merrill closed the files, looked at Kira directly. You need to understand what's coming, she said. Court-martial proceedings, testimony under oath, media attention, public scrutiny. This won't be quiet. This won't go away. 4 active duty personnel charged with attempted rape. Evidence of a cover-up 3 years ago. Implications of broader institutional failure. This is going to get loud. Very loud. I understand. Do you? Because part of me admires what you did. You fought back. You survived. You made sure they couldn't hurt anyone else. But another part of me, the part that's been doing this job for 15 years, knows that survivors don't always get justice. Sometimes the system protects the wrong people. Sometimes the victim becomes the problem because she's inconvenient, because she's proof of failure, because she won't stay quiet. I'm not a problem, Kira said quietly. I'm evidence. Merrill smiled, genuine this time. Yes, you are. And that's exactly the right answer. The trial began 3 weeks later. Military courtroom, formal, severe, flag at the front, judge at the bench, prosecution on one side, defense on the other. The 4 defendants sat in a row, orange jumpsuits, shackled. The gallery was full, media, military personnel, observers from advocacy groups, every seat taken, standing room only. Commander Sarah Brennan led the prosecution, 15 years experience. The kind of prosecutor who built cases like architects built buildings. The video evidence was overwhelming. The GoPro footage showed everything. The planning, the execution, the assault attempt. Owen Beckett testified, described every detail of the plan, every step of the conspiracy, his voice breaking as he admitted his own guilt. I grabbed her ankle, he said. I was told to hold her legs. I did. And while I was doing it, I whispered, I'm sorry. Like that meant anything. Like apologizing while participating made it better. Then Leah Stratford testified. The woman from 3 years ago, the first victim they knew of, she walked to the stand with her head high. 3 years ago, Derek Vance and Garrett Dunn drugged and assaulted me at an off-base party. I reported it immediately. Captain Hartley told me there was insufficient evidence, that pursuing charges would destroy my career. So I transferred. I tried to move on. And 2 years later, I left the Navy entirely because I couldn't stand being in the same organization that chose to protect my attackers instead of me. Finally, Kira testified. What happened in that room? Commander Brennan asked. They pushed me onto the bed. Garrett Dunn grabbed my left wrist. Cole Whitmore grabbed my right wrist. Owen Beckett held my left ankle. Garrett Dunn released my wrist and moved to hold my right ankle. Derek Vance tore my shirt. He said, and I quote exactly, "Scream louder. Nobody's coming. Nobody cares. You're alone." What did you do? I defended myself. The defense attorney tried to discredit her. You're trained in hand-to-hand combat, correct? Yes. So when 4 men confronted you, you were confident you could defeat them? No, I was terrified. But being terrified doesn't mean being helpless. It just means you fight harder. Why do you prefer to be alone? Because 8 years ago, I trusted someone I shouldn't have, and I learned that the only person responsible for my safety is me. The verdict came after 4 hours of deliberation, all counts, all defendants, guilty, Derek Vance, dishonorable discharge, 15 years confinement, Garrett Dunn, dishonorable discharge, 12 years, Cole Whitmore, dishonorable discharge, 10 years, Owen Beckett, dishonorable discharge, 3 years suspended, 5 years probation. The judge spoke directly to them. You took an oath to support and defend, to bear true faith and allegiance. You violated that oath in the most fundamental way possible. You targeted a fellow service member. You drugged her. You attempted to rape her. And you did so believing you would get away with it, because others had protected you before. Captain William Hartley was investigated next. Evidence emerged of 5 other complaints he'd buried over his career. 5 other women, 5 other assaults ignored. He was court-martialed 6 months later, stripped of rank, pension, benefits. Everything he'd built over 30 years of service, gone, as it should be. 3 years passed. Master Chief Nathan Holbrook was laid to rest with full military honors. Flag-draped coffin, 21-gun salute, taps played in the fading light. Kira stood with the honor guard, tears on her face but standing straight, honoring him the way he'd honored her. He'd left her his Navy Cross in his will, the knife too, and a letter. Kira, 10 years ago I lost the daughter I couldn't save, but I spent those 10 years making sure you survived, making sure you thrived, making sure Claire's memory lived on in the women I protected. You were never a replacement for her. You were proof that her death meant something, that loss could become purpose, that grief could become strength. I'm proud of you. Always was, always will be. Nathan. After the funeral, Bryn found her. You okay? Bryn asked. No, Kira said, but I will be. That's what he taught me. That survival isn't about being okay. It's about getting up anyway, moving forward anyway, fighting anyway. 2 years after the funeral, Kira was promoted to Master Chief, the youngest female SEAL to reach that rank. The ceremony was small, professional, no media, just her chain of command and a few close colleagues. Captain Wade pinned on her new anchors. You've come a long way, Master Chief, he said. Yes, sir. Where to from here? Kira looked around the room, at the younger female operators watching, learning, growing, at Bryn. Now a petty officer first class, grinning with pride. Forward, Kira said. Always forward. The obstacle course at Coronado looked the same. Same rope climb, same gravel, same Pacific wind cutting across the base. But the woman standing at the edge was different. Master Chief Kira Blackwell, 31 years old, 13 years of service. She watched 20 female recruits struggle through the course. Among them, 3 who'd graduated from her combat self-defense program, 3 who knew how to fight back, 3 who would never be easy targets. Beside her, Senior Chief Bryn Ashford held a stopwatch. Martinez is falling behind, Bryn said. Let her. She'll catch up or she won't. That's her choice, her fight. Sounds familiar. Bryn smiled. Kira didn't smile back, but something softened in her eyes, something that might eventually become peace. You caught up. You made the choice to keep fighting. Nobody made it for you. A recruit hit the ground hard. lay there for a second, then got back up, kept moving, refused to quit. Kira nodded approval. That was the lesson. Not avoiding the fall, getting back up after. Every single time, no matter how hard, no matter how much it hurt. Her phone buzzed. Email from Leah Stratford's nonprofit. 500th survivor placed in support program today. Lives saved because you refused to stay silent. Thank you. L. Kira pocketed the phone. 500 women who'd found help because 2 survivors had refused to let the system win. Because 2 voices had become a chorus. Because silence had been broken. Good news? Bryn asked. Someone's getting help. Someone who needs it. That's all we can do, right? Make sure the next one isn't alone. Make sure they have options. Make sure they know survival is possible. Kira touched her pocket, where Holbrook's knife still rested, the weight familiar after all these years. His Navy Cross was at home now, mounted above her desk. His lesson remained. Trust your instincts. Fight when necessary. Survive. Build something better. Leave the world improved by your presence. Master Chief, Bryn said. You good? Yeah, Kira said. I'm good. Better than good. I'm where I'm supposed to be, doing what I'm supposed to do. The recruits finished the course. Exhausted, bruised, unbroken. Just like her. Kira turned away from the course, toward the building where her next class waited. 20 more women, 20 more warriors in training, 20 more potential survivors who'd never have to face what she faced alone. The work continued, it always would, because that's what survivors did. They survived. Then they made sure others could too. They turned trauma into purpose. They built legacies from ashes. They refused to let darkness win. And in the quiet moments when the work was done and the base settled into night, Kira Blackwell could look in the mirror and see someone she respected. Someone she'd fought hard to become. Someone who'd survived the unsurvivable and built something meaningful from the wreckage. That woman staring back, scarred but unbroken, damaged but functioning, traumatized but thriving. That woman was worth everything she'd endured to become. And that was enough. More than enough. The end.